Welcome to the Real Talk with Megan podcast, where we have candid conversations about the things that matter most. I'm your host, Megan, and we're going to deep dive into the topic of mental health. In a world where we're constantly pressured to perform, achieve, and excel, it's easy to neglect our mental health. But the truth is, mental health is just as important as physical health, and it's time we started treating it as such. Join the conversation as we explore the complexities of mental health issues and speak with experts, advocates, and individuals who have lived through these challenges. Together, we'll work to destigmatize mental health and start conversations. So sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and get ready for a real and raw conversation about mental health on the Real Talk with Megan podcast. I am so excited because today we have a special treat for you. My friend Joni is here and she's going to be a part of this episode. Joni, will you introduce yourself a little bit to let everybody know who you are?
Sure. I'm Joni Stroud Martin. I am a licensed mental health counselor. I am also trained in equine facilitated psychotherapy and eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is a well-known treatment for trauma.
Awesome. Well, today we're going to talk about something I know a lot about because I personally struggle with it is social anxiety. So what is social anxiety?
Well, I think the main thing to think about social anxiety is it's actually more than shyness, right? Because a lot of
Yeah.
people feel anxious when they enter into a large crowd
Yep.
or they go on an interview. Like that's normal nervousness.
Right.
But with social anxiety, what we're looking at is this is something that's pervasive. Like it really messes with your normal functions of daily living, right?
Yeah.
And there's actually a part where this is something that lasts like 6 months or more. This is not something that, just happened today or
Yeah.
just a few weeks, such as like you started a job. Most people are nervous, like they don't know what to expect.
Right.
But after a few weeks, you've gotten to know your coworkers a little bit, you understand the job more. It should start to kind of chill out and you get a little less nervous over time. With social anxiety, no, that stays pretty heightened for you, and may actually tend to just continue to increase because now you care even more what your coworkers think of you, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have a shirt. We were talking about this right before we started, and I was like, I should have worn it today, but it doesn't matter because you guys can't see this anyways. But it says Social Anxiety Society, and around it says, I'm just here to make things awkward, which is how I think people who deal with social anxiety feel in every social situation. I think the thing I've realized is that most people aren't recognizing you are awkward. Our society is very focused on themselves a lot of time. And you're thinking like, oh, they're thinking this is super awkward. This is a weird interaction. But in reality, they're probably not noticing your awkwardness at all.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. And that's the thing about social anxiety is it is a fear response based off what we think other people are thinking.
Yep.
Right. And also it's about performance, like whether or not, I'm going to mess up or then there's the other piece that we're afraid that other people see our fear, right?
Yeah.
Like other people just notice that my neck got real hot or people are noticing that my pits are sweating and, that my teeth are now chattering or my hands are quivering.
Yeah.
And so now we become kind of like that fear of the fear, right? I'm afraid that I'm going to feel this and other people are going to see it.
Yeah.
And that is a really big piece of social anxiety is that we're afraid others are going to notice it, judge us.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you take that, because the next question is, so what?
Right.
What's the big deal if somebody notices? Now we're getting into those core belief pieces.
Yeah.
Where someone says, if someone notices it, they will judge me harshly.
Right.
And then I will be rejected. And there's the fear.
That's where it's at.
Yeah.
That's where it goes deep down. It's almost like it's sometimes hard to make eye contact with people when you have social anxiety because it's like if you make eye contact, it's like they're looking deep into your soul and they can see every messy thing in there.
Absolutely. It's like there's this giant billboard that just has everything written on it.
Oh,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if somebody is out there listening and they feel like, I just heard you say everything about me. That's what I feel. That's what I see. Like,
what things can they do to help manage this, to help work around it, to help just in their daily lives do things that maybe are really uncomfortable or feel awkward to them?
Sure. I think that is one of the biggest pieces because what we would work on, let's say somebody was sitting across from me and they're explaining this to me.
Yeah.
I would ask, what is your goal? Like, what do you want? Because I think if we're going to swing way over to one end and say, I never want to feel anxious, well, you would not be alive. So, like, we can't go
Yeah.
that far, right? So, I think what we need to talk about is a level of tolerance for those symptoms of anxiety, that nervousness. Like, begin to be okay with feeling that.
Yeah.
Because once I can determine that this is normal, I'm a normal human.
Right?
We get nervous.
get
like
nervous.
we're in large crowds or we are going to be stand up in front of a group of people. I think once we can develop that sense of tolerance for that, then we can actually start talking about, hey, let's talk about ways to increase that tolerance.
Yeah.
Meaning, let's just go do things on purpose. Like, let's just get
Yeah.
up in front of a crowd. Let's just put ourselves in situations where we know that it's going to cause us to have that response because it's a true fear response, right?
Yeah.
The body is saying danger, danger.
Right.
It's just not a real danger. It
Right.
just doesn't really exist,
Yeah.
right? So we would talk about ways that you could actually put yourself out there. And in addition to that, we're going to talk about how do you talk to yourself?
Mm.
What are you saying to yourself
Oh, yeah.
when you're right? We've talked about that inner critic. She's pretty loud up there.
Absolutely. Yep. Real loud. For sure. No, I mean, things you're saying, like those are things I know I've done in my own life. I've been offered like opportunities to speak to people or do different things, and that scared the crap out of me.
Mhm.
I'm like, I can't go in front of people and talk, and like I stumble over my words, and that inner critic is like, no, you can't do this because this and this, and these are your fears. When I've stepped into those places and stepped up and prepared my little heart out so that I can do this well, I've made intentional choices too. So if I have anxiety of being in front of people and I'm going to sweat a lot, I'm going to wear black top or I'm going to wear a jean jacket. So those are things I don't have to
Yes.
stress or worry about. It
Yes.
takes the focus off of that's what people are only going to see to I can actually clearly, hopefully, get out my words and people can hear what I'm trying to say. So I know that's one piece I've added into my own life that it seems like a little thing to a lot of people. And if somebody who goes and speaks all the time, like they wouldn't think anything about it. They'd be in all kinds of different colors. But if I'm ever going to speak in front of people, it's going to probably be something darker that you're not going to see. So you don't have to worry about it.
And that's the thing. With social anxiety is one of the things that we experience is we do have that like that brain fog or our
Mhm.
brain goes blank where
Mhm.
we know what we were going to say.
Yep.
We practiced this for months. And then we get up in front of them and it's just this huge like we've lost all of our words.
Mhm.
And that is one of our big fears. So we can see how it's just a nasty little spiral
Yeah.
where one is feeding the other. So the other piece that we would talk about is ways that you can actually calm that inner
Mm.
core. Like, what are some things that you can be doing? Nobody has to know.
Right.
Nobody can see it. Ways that you can be calming that self down because it's one of my favorite quotes. It's from, it's a John Wayne quote. So let's just be honest. He says, courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyway.
That's
Feel the
good.
fear, but doing anyway. And
Yeah.
and that's how we overcome this idea of social anxiety. It's like you're saying, like, I know I'm going to be afraid.
Right.
But I'm going to wear a black jacket
Yep.
and nobody's going to know that my pits are sweating.
Right.
You know, I've learned that I can put a peppermint in my mouth because what's weird, the mouth gets dry, but the pits get wet. Like, how does this work, right? So
Yes.
I put a peppermint in, I wear my jacket, and I'm going to make myself do these things
Mhm.
and really begin to ask myself, what is the worst thing
Yeah.
that's going to happen? And really challenge her in your head. You know,
Yeah.
that critic in your head that says, it's everybody's going to leave you and you're going to end up
Yeah.
lonely and
You're going to trip on the stage. All those
Absolutely.
things.
People will laugh and never talk to you again. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely. That is worst case scenario.
Mhm.
We begin to challenge her.
I mean, I know in my own life that has made such a difference of continuing to do those things, facing that fear head on. Does it get easier? Yes, but is it still there? Do I still have to process it and manage it?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
It's not just going to disappear and be gone one day if that's something you truly struggle with. I mean, maybe that would be awesome, but it will get easier and easier as time goes on. It still will be there. And so the best way, if you can find different tools and different things that work for you, because everybody is different and there's going to be different things that work for each person. But if you can find those things or find somebody to talk to find those things, you can really improve the way that you handle different situations for sure.
Yeah, and big piece of it is sharing this,
Mhm.
talking about it.
Yeah.
I've said it over and over again. When you talk about things and you bring them
Mhm.
out in the light, they just lose their power.
Yeah.
So the more you talk about this with others, you're probably going to get a bunch of people saying, "Ah, that's me too,"
Yeah.
right? The more that we can do that, the more we realize we're not the only ones that are thinking the
Absolutely.
same thing when we walk in a room, because stuff like this keeps kids from trying out for drama class.
Mhm.
It keeps someone going for a promotion or
Yeah.
for a job in and of itself. It keeps people from maybe wanting to pursue a career
Yeah.
because they may have to go to college and walk into a classroom.
Yeah. And be called on without you raising your hand.
No. Huge fear, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I know that Joni sent me a link that I'm going to put in the show notes. And I loved it because when I clicked on it to look at it, it talked about how it's not just shyness and it goes through a lot of things we've talked about. But as I was sitting there looking at the symptoms and the signs of how this was shown, I was like, check, check, check. Yep. Okay. Well, it just confirmed that here I am. But it's acknowledging that. I mean, recognizing is the first step with anything to do with mental health. So as you recognize what you're struggling with and where you're struggling, you can find ways to help manage that in the future for sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, we're almost done, but is there anything else you would love to add to this just to give a last piece of advice to those that are listening?
I think if you've listened to this point,
Hmm.
it means it's resonated with you.
Hmm.
I think anybody that will follow this all the way through has probably been thinking, me too, or maybe it's your kiddo.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother piece is as a parent, if
Hmm.
you recognize it in yourself, but then recognizing it in your kiddo, they're going to have a lot of these same symptoms as well.
Yeah.
And we tend to, with kiddos, we tend to just want to like shove them.
Mm.
We want to push them on the back and say, "Go ahead." Don't be a scaredy cat or whatever.
Yeah.
Probably not the best way to handle that.
Maybe not.
Acknowledging your own, letting your
Hmm.
kiddo know that you feel it too, but this is what you
Yeah.
do. Let your kiddo see you.
Mm.
Be afraid, but do it anyway.
Yeah.
Because this can be genetics.
Yeah.
This can be personality, meaning how they form their belief about themselves and others. It also could be learned behavior because
Yeah.
they've seen it from others, maybe you. So, thinking about this outside of yourself as well, ways to be able to focus on your kiddos and helping them to be able to manage their own social anxiety as well.
Yeah. No, I mean that resonates so much with me because I have kids that struggle with those things as well. And so being open and honest and being able to talk about that, I've seen a world of a difference because they're like, well, I recognize that's my anxiety. That's this.
I love
And
it.
it's so good because I'm like, yes, it is. And it makes my heart so happy that like if they can start to understand that now, man, when they become adults and they grow up, there's going to be things that are so much easier that I struggled with. And so now they have like such a brighter future with the things that they have in them. And every time I'm like, this is a part of you. It's not that something is wrong with you.
Hmm.
It's not that you're a complete mess.
Hmm.
Like, those are not the things that sometimes the world will tell us, like,
Hmm.
something's wrong with you or you're just a hot mess.
Yes.
And that's not true. Those are
Yes.
complete lies. And so, one, we have to stop telling ourselves that. And
Yes.
that's that self, in our head, who's speaking to us. And yeah, so I love that. And I think that just reigns so true in my own life.
Absolutely. And labeling it, giving it a
Yes.
name instead of allowing it to be a character defect
Yeah.
because it's not. Just
Mhm.
name it for what it is, talk about it,
Yeah.
whatever this is, and so it just becomes this very common language in your
Mhm.
household. Like,
Yeah.
oh, well, there was social anxiety right there.
Yeah.
And then talk about, what did you do or this is what
Mhm.
I've done or can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love that. That's so good. So, if you guys have any questions that you're listening and you would love to discuss this more, reach out. There's different ways to connect with me. You can find on the websites or through these podcasts in the show notes, so you guys can connect with that. And also, Joni's going to be back for more conversations, and I absolutely love every time we get to have conversations. It's one of my favorite things. So we're going to have more conversations, and if there's topics you want to discuss or anything that you would love to just kind of hear more on, let me know. Send it to me, message, however you want to get that to me. And I would love to hear kind of what you guys want to hear about and talk about, because that's definitely what we want to talk about.
Thanks for listening to Real Talk with Megan. Remember, you are not alone. Seeking help is a sign of strength, and taking care of your mental health is just as important as taking care of your physical health. We'll see you next time for more honest conversations.